Consider and take action to set rules guiding the function of the Financial Advisory Committee, including the authority of the chairman to exclude committee members at his discretion. It's my agenda item. I'm going to ask my appointee to the committee to make his statement, and then we'll look into the rest of this agenda item. Come to the podium and please use the microphone.
Seems so somber in here. I think we need to borrow the national printing press and solve our problems. A year ago, I was blissfully ignorant about Bowie County politics. Then along comes a tax rollback election. What businessman doesn't like a tax rollback? I ended up helping with the rollback for two reasons. Number one, the economy is terrible and many people are struggling. Number two, I spoke with several people who supported the tax increase issue and felt like they were trying to deceive us by saying our taxes are not being raised. In my studying, I learned about laws regulating maintenance operations and sinking and interest reporting. Many citizens wanted to send a message: don't mess with Bowie County taxpayers. For the most part, we are honest, hardworking people trying to obey the laws, however difficult they may be, and we expect the same from our government officials, both locally and nationally. We don't like the political wrangling, but realize that it is a necessary evil that enables us to make better choices between different ideas and candidates. Now, about my position on the Financial Advisory Committee. First of all, I wanted to say that I did not ask for this job. I was asked to do it, and I agreed under the following conditions. Number one, all meetings will be open to the public. Number two, we and our assistants will have access to every record and document throughout the county. Number three, all information obtained that can lawfully be made public will be subject to being made public by any of the 5 committee members. Over a month ago, I watched the county auditor, William Tice, say he didn't know where the missing $3 million was, and that Judge Lacey would have to ask the treasurer. The following special session, Mr. Tice stood up and proceeded to explain to the court for about 20 minutes where the money was, while the treasurer essentially said nothing. I find this and other discrepancies very disturbing. I felt that I could bring something to the committee and requested that I be assigned to review procedures and policies of those 2 offices. From Mr. Miner's article, which Mike Sandifer touted as our committee's guide, I quote, "It is also important that this committee gets the full support of all county officials, including constitutional officers. No corner of county operations should escape scrutiny. Officials at all levels need to open up about their operations and open their books to this committee so that a true and complete picture of county finances can emerge. Without question, every single issue that exists involves taxpayer money. There's no reason this committee can have full and complete access to how it is collected and spent," unquote. Skipping down a few sentences, he goes on to say, quote, "No part of this process should be secret. The public is not only interested in what the committee finds, but how they found it. They need to harbor a deep respect for the public's right to know," unquote. After being appointed to this Financial Advisory Board, I was assigned to secure records and information from the Auditor and Treasurer's offices. Within my role as committee member, I submitted an open records request for 10 years of bank statements. It was my understanding that they were not available because they had been shredded. Whether this was a misunderstanding on the part of the treasurer or myself or both, I understood this to be a violation of Texas law. I sought the opinion of the sheriff, who directed me to the district attorney's office, and after a few rounds of conversation, the quote, misunderstanding, unquote, was corrected. I did not run to the media. I did not go make wild statements or accusations. I have been accused of threatening a lawsuit and being a rogue. I have never threatened a lawsuit. And in my opinion, Mr. Sandifer is the one being the rogue. Let's look at the facts. He was the one that insisted using Les Miner's article as a guide to follow in doing our work. And when I did just that, he calls me the rogue. Mr. Sandifer was apparently given misinformation about me, but instead of doing his due diligence and making sure he had both sides of the story, he began spreading his gossip. This is irresponsible in any fair-minded person's opinion. Mr. Sandifer says that I embarrassed him. Is that true? By spreading false accusations about me, he's done a fine job of embarrassing all of us without any help from me. Mr. Sandifer did not appoint me to this committee, and unless I'm mistaken, he has no power to muzzle me or remove me. If anyone should be removed from this committee, it should be Mike Sandifer. He is the one who insisted we meet in private against the advice given in Les Miner's article. For whatever reason, Mr. Sandifer has succeeded in controlling how and what the rest of the committee says and does. Mr. Sandifer doesn't want us to look back past 2011. Why is that? When I've been told that former Judge Carlo's administration did such a good job in managing our county finances, why not look back as far as possible, see what he and the commissioners did back then that produced such good results? It makes no sense. Does this court want to just go along to get along? I have said from the beginning that I will not waste my time doing all this work while having my hands tied. Do you want a person who will dig and ask hard questions and expose the truth, that will give solid answers to solving our county's financial problems? Someone who will not just gloss over wrongdoing, but will point out good and bad no matter who or what is involved? If so, then allow me to finish my job without the rest of the committee impeding me. Like many other Bowie County residents, I just want to be a responsible, hard-working, freedom-loving citizen. Thank you for your time.
Setting guidelines on the Financial Advisory Committee.
I don't have any problem with what our advisory committee has been doing. I feel like they're giving us straightforward facts, whether we like it or not. I don't know about the conflict between Robert and Mike. I don't know exactly how that needs to be handled.
Did you give him the authority to remove the appointee that you approved?
I didn't know that he had
Excluded. They'll copy me on the emails. Take his assignments away from me and give them to somebody else. Were you aware of any of that? Do you want to set rules so that he's free to do that, or do you want to set some guidelines and rules?
I'd like to see them work and get along for the betterment for the committee and us as commissioners. Any way y'all get along?
Would you like for your chairman of the committee to treat him like all the other members of the committee and maybe go with him the same
I
information?
need to have the same access, but I also want to hold our committee where it's at. I think we get very sound financial advice.
You know, under the Freedom of Information Act, everything in that courthouse, as far as I know, is available to the public. Whether it be bank statements or anything else. So as an individual, he had every right to ask for those records as a citizen. taxpayer, citizen, much less a member of the committee. I don't understand what the problem was, to be quite truthful, asking for information that's available to the general public. Anyone in this audience can walk into the courthouse with a freedom of information request and ask for any document they want. They've got 10 days to give it to them. So I didn't understand the conflict myself when it's information that's readily available to anyone in the public. So I don't know about guidelines or anything, but I'd like to see all the representatives of the committee get along. I'd like to see all of them with input into our finances, because as 5 members of the Commissioners Court here, we should all get good representation and input through the committee with the internal workings. And, you know, if this committee is going to help us, then they've got to work together. Otherwise, it's going to make it hard for us to work together. So it kind of all stems from working together as an advisory committee and advising commissioners. We're trying. I'm trying, speak for myself.
Let a committee member speak.
Yes.
I would suggest that as a guideline for the committee, that any findings or suspicions should come back to the committee and be discussed by the committee and be routed through the chair. That would be a good guideline.
That's not what Mike Sandifer himself used. Les Miner's article as our guide. He's the one that said, this is our guide, this is what we should do. And one of my preconditions was that anything that we find, any individual of the committee, the 5 of us, we find the subject to be made public. Going through the chair means that he's the one that gets to say what is acceptable to present to you guys and what's not. I may find things that I think can be done that he doesn't like.
I think he's just wanting that for review, or maybe you don't have a mistake that y'all had, where there was accusations made.
Exactly. Well, he never even talked to me before we started making those accusations.
I wasn't talking about it. Just saying.
We all have different expertise on the committee, so we should all collaborate and make sure that we see what we see and not what we think we see.
I agree
So
with
it's important for us to meet together as a committee and then go through the chair. Now, you have the right to talk to any of these commissioners and the judge on your own at any time. You also have the right to request any documentation you need. But before you speak as a committee member to the public, the committee needs to meet and discuss what your issues are.
And I wasn't speaking to the public at all. It was Mr. Sandifer made this little deal all public. I didn't go to the press or the public at all. I was asking questions about what seemed to be a possibility of something still illegal going on. I didn't know whether it was or not. And that's all I was doing, was trying to find out what my responsibility was, not only as a committee member, but as a citizen.
The problem wasn't requesting a document. The problem is going to all the law enforcement agencies and reporting them. You know, he misunderstood when we stood out in the hallway and talked. But, you know, he went to all those law enforcement agencies before he called back and said, you know, I misunderstood you. That was my problem, is, you know, going and doing that without double checking, or calling the committee and saying, look, you know, this may not be, let's check into it. But just going and calling the sheriff's office and DA, a stranger, I was upset, you know, because I knew I had that stuff down there. That was the issue. Now, I didn't go public with it either. He called me and he said, well, I misunderstood, and he said, well, you told me this. I said, no, that's not what I told you. So that was a misunderstanding between us. But, he went to every agency he could before it actually got back to me.
Well, why didn't you just give him the information when he asked for it?
Well, he asked for 10 years, okay, and I saw 10 years on his deal. And I said, I don't have 10 years. I said, there was some stuff shredded. And he said, well, that's against the law. And I said, no, hold on a minute. I said, we're only required to keep this many years. And he said, well, get me what you've got. And I said, I will.
How many years are you required?
We're required to keep 3. And then they put out a deal where we will keep 5. But I have back to 2007. So I have plenty. I'm even way over the 5. So.
Anything on there that anybody?
No, and I don't care if he has them, but, and he also had on there electronic format. Well, we can't do that. We have to copy everything. And I have taken him a year's worth of general fund and then all of May. So, and now I've told him that we're working on getting the other, but it's gonna take a while. Because this is my busy month where I do state reports, bond payments. You know, we got, July is a busy month, so he will get them. It's just gonna take a while. But we can't do it in electronic format. And if we could, then he would have got them a lot quicker, and that may have been why he didn't think that I was gonna get them to him.
When you cannot deliver within the 10 days, do you know what procedure you're supposed to follow?
I let him know that it would be, and he signed off on all that, on what I took him, and that I would get the other as soon as possible. So,
Yes, sir.
When I first talked to her about that in the hallway, I thought she said, I understood to her to say that she only had 3 years and that previous treasurer, Bryce Gazelle, had shredded the rest of it. And that's what I understood. I might have misunderstood her. I'm not sure. But then when I talked to Bryce Gazelle about it, he said that he thought it was 5 years plus the current year, which apparently by law, which I eventually was able to find out, is 5 years plus the current year.
there's 2 out there, 3 years and 5 years. I've got 8 years.
And then, so that's what, whenever I met with Bryce Gazelle, then I got to thinking about it overnight, and I thought, wait a minute, if she's only got 3 years, and it's supposed to be 5 years, if Mr. Gazelle's right, there may be something here that's not being done legally. And so that's when I called the sheriff and asked him if he knew what was going on, and because I wanted to know, number one, was I going to be responsible for not reporting something? See, because as a citizen, you can commit a crime by not reporting something. So I was trying to find out what the law was. And that's all I was doing by calling the sheriff. He directed me to the district attorney's office. I forget whether it's the sheriff or the district attorney's office that told me maybe I should call the attorney general's office. I ended back with the sheriff. He told me to call the Texas Ranger. He even gave me the Texas Ranger's phone number. And then I called, Texas Ranger referred me back to the sheriff. The sheriff said that he would call Donna and talk to her. And so whenever I called Donna back, she said, well, you misunderstood me, and told me what the deal was, that she had 8 years of bank statements. I said, no problem. In the meantime, this deal with Mr. Sandifer, he goes and makes everything all public and calls me a rogue and says I threatened a lawsuit, which I've never threatened a lawsuit.
Did you come back to the
Mr.
committee? This
Senator, I
never
think
would
you
have
had your
happened.
hand up next.
Yeah.
Let's go over what happened here. Our committee is working on this under Les Miner's guidelines. Mr. Worthing told me his preconditions. I agree with him more than Joe. Joe said you ought to bring everything to the committee chairman before you release it to the public. I don't agree with that. Robert was appointed to this committee on Wednesday. He was appointed late to the committee on Commissioners Court on the recess on Friday. I left Commissioners Court and went to the granary to welcome Robert to the committee. We visited for an hour or more. He told me what assignment he wanted, which was cash. I gave him that assignment. He came and set an appointment with the treasurer. I was there with them for about a year. We were going over it. He was learning. We were going over all the procedures because he had not done some of that before. His store is a little different than the county. We had a meeting. Actually, I think the treasurer and then the auditor were not happy with his first approach because he had his tape recorder there and was recording all the transactions, all the conversation that was happening. And I mentioned that at the last Commissioners Court meeting. It's perfectly legal. It might be right. Why should anybody stop them? I don't know how effective that will be. So anyway, we have another meeting with Judge Lacey, Tom Whitten, and our committee, our first meeting together at that same day. He records that meeting, then he goes into Judge Lacey's office, uploads his conversation, and emails it to people. I don't have a problem with that. He can do anything he wants to with the information that's found on the committee. What I do have a problem with was a few days later, the treasurer calls and says he has called the sheriff, the district attorney, and the Texas Rangers because he says I am breaking the law. It's not what he was asking for that was a problem. These are bank reconciliations, 10 years, 8 years, 20 years, it doesn't make any difference. If he wanted that, he asked for it, and they were working on that. Now, getting all law enforcement around here in a dither about whether a crime had been committed seems a little excessive. So when I heard about this, I called the district attorney's office and talked to the district attorney, and she verified what had happened. We called on this crime. Has a crime been committed? He was investigating wrongdoing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Wow. I called Sheriff Prince. He said, yes, I called, and the Texas Ranger, so most of the story had been confirmed. So I emailed everybody on my committee and these 5 people to be transparent and said, I've got a serious incident here. One of my committee members has called the law on this work. Plus, it was like Emmett Patella on Saturday Night Live. Never mind. So, I emailed Robert, and he emailed me back that Friday night. This all happened the same day. And basically put down exactly what he just told me. He just told you what he did. Now, as my committee, we are, first of all, working on trying to go forward. But anybody can do anything they want. What I was looking at was how effective could he or members of my committee be going to talk to people around here what's going on when you got a tape recorder and a gotcha attitude. It doesn't even come back and say, wait a second, I think there's a problem over here. Instead, we go to DEFCON 5 and start calling everybody. So I slept on it all week, and I've spent more hours on this little problem than I wish I had. Because we got 250 families getting laid off. What he requested has nothing to do with this. As a matter of fact, I picked up his request. I had the treasurer deliver a copy to Judge Lacey's office. Correct?
I think you asked her to deliver to my office what he asked for.
Yes, no, everything he asked for was delivered to the office. I also had them deliver a copy of what he asked for to the Texas County Gazette. This is not about what he asked for. It's about DEFCON 5. We are trying to go forward. Our committee, our volunteer committee, is doing an awful lot of work. And we're in people's offices and trying to do the right thing. Everything that we have done, we have been extremely transparent with. We have given to everybody, given the Gazette, given to everybody. Everybody's getting the same story. We are putting our stuff in writing with our name on it. I don't know how you can be more transparent than that. So, on Monday, I talked to my committee to talk about how effective we could be with this behavior and with this approach, and would that hurt our committee's effectiveness? And the answer was yes. And so I suspended him, is what I called it, until we had our first Commissioners Court meeting, which is today. Because I don't know what to do. I mean, this is crazy in my mind, but, you know, I'm new at this. Since then, we've had the budget cuts and the layoff. Now, also, Mike Carter spoke earlier. I was in Mike's office, I think the Monday or maybe the Tuesday afterward. Mike told me, he called Judge Lacey and said, you ought to remove that guy from the committee. Now, I think Mike Carter's changed his mind since then. But perhaps, you know, some of these impressions were the same. Anyway, what I mentioned this morning is with the 250 families being affected, what our committee needs right now is some human resources help. Now, Judge Lacey's interested in the 250 employees and the ones that are about to get laid off. I would like him to reassign to our committee somebody from Chris Karam's organization that'll do human resources, Jim Bunches, BWI, Paul Norton, somebody that can help us help y'all. And help y'all. Thank you. So my request for this will be no action, and we will do our best, I promise.
We need to establish today whether or not we've given the chairman of the committee authority, or if you want to give him authority to suspend your court-appointed people at his discretion before bringing it back to you. You want to set that rule from here on and decide where to go from there. My appointee stands.
Y'all like to vote to add another member? He's asking for human resource help. As a group, a majority vote.
So you'd have to put on the agenda. The agenda item today is to set rules guiding the functions of the Financial Advisory Committee, including the chairman, with the authority of the chairman to exclude committee members at his discretion. Is it your desire for him to be able to exclude them at his discretion?
Judge, I think as this being a voluntary committee, Commissioner Court of this bench should not have any authority to tell them what to do or what not to do. He, as a chairman, is guideline for all of this. It's up to the committee to make their decision, not us to help them or not set rules and regulations for them to go by. We have a job to get done. They're trying to help us do it. So let's let them do what they've got to do.
Any other discussion?
I would underscore what he just said, as well as when this committee was brought forth, it was discussed that they were not going to be, have any shackles or any kind of, it's their committee. They appointed him chairman, he's chairman, that's their committee, it's not ours. We're looking for help, and they're providing, they're working their tails off. I think you could probably ask his wife, and she'd probably dice for how much time he spent in as well as all of them. And we owe them a great deal of gratitude. And this county's going to be indebted to them when this is all over, for all the hard work they've done and what they've done through. And I appreciate every one of you. And I, for one, am not gonna vote for any kind of rules on it. So, we'll move forward, or you wanna make your motion? Well,
I think they need to work together to get along like we're supposed to. Look it out. Y'all may not like my appointment to the committee, but, I'm sorry, but like I say, I think, everyone is representing someone on this commissioner's court, so if y'all try to work together, I think y'all can make it. I'm not gonna tell Judge Lacy who he can and can't appoint, just like I wouldn't tell a commissioner, any of the other commissioners here who they can and can't appoint to the committee. What their restrictions are, as long as they're asking for legal documents, to try to give input, to the best of their ability, I don't see that there's such a major problem working together. They may not, I don't know, I haven't been to any of the committee meetings where they're all available or all together, but, I haven't seen any written guidelines about what they can and can't do. I know my appointee said that he had been designated to look into, a couple of contracts, and that's the area that he's working on. And, I hope he hasn't stepped on any toes by asking for certain things, because I know that he has asked for contracts and things also. So, it may be that Mr. Wortham was a little zealous in his endeavor, but, maybe we can work forward from here.
Is it your intention to continue to exclude him from copies of the emails and work of the committee?
I'll give that some thought.
And I'd like to make a motion, the chairman of the Financial Advisory Committee may not exclude any Bowie County Commissioners Court appointee from equal treatment of all other members of the committee. Motion on the floor, do we have a second?
I will second it for the sake of discussion.
Motion made by Judge Lacy, seconded by Commissioner Carter.
I think maybe you need to amend your motion to say that unless there are laws breaking, where that may be excluded, but as long as he's working within the limits of the law, the open records act, I don't see that he should be thrown back with his request for information.
Not without receiving permission from the Commissioner's Court.
That would be acceptable.
I amend my motion. The motion is the chairman of the Financial Advisory Committee may not exclude a Bowie County Commissioners Court appointed member from equal treatment of all other members of the committee without receiving permission from the court. Do you amend your second to accept my amendment? Very good. The motion is amended, has been made by the judge, seconded by Commissioner Carter. Any further discussion?
Here again, we're setting guidelines from them. We're not letting them do their voluntary work. And I understand there can be conflict. You know, there's conflict up here at times. There again, if they are out there to do a job, they're not getting it down. All they're getting is what appreciation, what praise we can give them. So I very much have a problem with that.
Any further discussion? Comments or questions? I'll pull the court. Commissioner Stone, how do you vote?
No.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
Judge votes yes. Commissioner Whitten?
no.
And Commissioner Blackburn?
No.